You gotta chill, man.
We're back. Finally, after a while, we are back tonight. Welcome to the Big Dig Live. I have no idea what episode it is, but we're back. That's all I got to say. But welcome also back, Scott Howarth and Liz King. So we have been on the road. There's been a lot of things going on, and that's why we have not been here. So I want to do a little catch up time for everybody. Let's see. I'm going to I wrote down some notes of the things of at least what, well, some of us have been part of it. Like for instance, we took our families, Liz and I, now we were not together, but we were at the same concert, but we took our families to a Forrest Frank concert. If you don't know who Forrest Frank is a contemporary Christian artist. And he is based out of, where's he out of? I don't even know. But
Texas. I think he originated in Texas. But
yeah, Texas. It's kind of a kids style hip hop, rapish type music, I guess you'd say.
He is the modern day version of Toby Mac. He's
Toby
this
Mac
generation's Toby Mac.
That's a good description.
I made a meme, and it's called Christian Music Math, and I had a picture of Toby Mac, and then plus Billy Graham equals Forrest Frank. So if Toby Mac and Billy Graham had a baby, it would be Forrest Frank.
Yeah, his concert was impressive.
It was all
even to me. His musicians, dude, Scott, because you know we talk musicianship a lot. His musicians are amazing. Yeah. I mean, world class. And it was so neat. It was very simple as far as his stage. It was basically a hill. So if you think, and of course, so the background would be maybe a blue sky, and his band sits up there around that hill.
Like a picnic. It looked like a picnic.
It was like a picnic, but he really, of course, he's got a lot of positive. His songs are really good lyrically. Yeah. From the first album to now, I mean, he's morphed a little bit.
And it's all God. It's just, it's even, this is what, even his concert, he's humble. And that's hard, especially when you start getting in there. And I pray he stays humble. But, and he told us, like, when we were there, he was like, this is something I never wanted to do. So right there, that shows God put him there, because he did not want to do that. Then God had other plans. And
he, he took the time, like he went through he went to the piano and he showed how, like, cool. Good Day, that song, Good Day, it's going to be a good day. He showed the process, and I already knew that process because I do all that. And Scott, you've been a part of that too in the studio, but he showed how he used Logic and layered all these different sounds and then brought it to fruition as far as what the song was and all that. So it was really, really cool. But yeah, so he took the time, just like I said, there's some connection, I think, with his father, I think it was, or grandfather.
His grandfather he traveled with Billy Graham, and he opens it up with the testimony of his grandfather, who gives his testimony. And it
was really, really cool how they did it. But I wasn't sure how it would be, it's like, oh, this is that, I sounded more and more like an old guy. Oh, that's that newfangled me. But it actually was really, really good. So we had a good time.
How did you get into, because when I talked to you last, I'm like, I'm going to the Forrest Frank concert. I took my kids. And then all of a sudden, you're like, are you here? I'm here. I'm like, wait, what? I
told you that we were going, but you may have forgot.
I must have forgot.
But it was just a quick, we're going type thing. It wasn't like we talked about it. But it turns out Liz and her folks were we were on the upper level and they were right below us. Huh. is quite interesting. But it was a good concert and all that stuff. Let's see what else we have here. So Easter recap. I want to recap Easter real quick first. At Hillview for our church, it was standing room only. It was packed.
Yeah, you could
All
read
three
all
services,
there.
especially they're 9:30, and I think there were 21. Was it 21 baptisms
Yes.
that day?
Wow.
I don't know how many conversions there were in all that,
I
but
think he said 26 got saved over Easter week.
I know the 9:30 they had an overflow room, and it was like had 100 people in it, and they
Wow.
were.
I
And
didn't know that.
y'all, for those who've been to Hillview, there's steps that go from the bottom floor to the balcony, and there were people sitting on those steps.
Yeah, that's
All
where I
the
was.
chairs we had everywhere, so it was powerful, and it wasn't just our church. We're hearing stories from all over the country about how God had really moved in services all over the place. So
There is a revival, an
Yeah.
awakening.
there is definitely a revival and awakening. There's something stirring.
You even see it in the movies. Everything in the film industry, everything. It's like there are these Jesus things coming out, the Bible coming out all the time now.
American Idol. You can probably look this
Yeah.
up on YouTube if you wish. They had a night of worship on
Really?
ABC. On ABC.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
And Jelly Roll it tied in with Brandon Lake, and there's a bit there, and then Carrie Underwood sang, and I don't know all the rest. We haven't looked it up, but they said it was just very, very, very powerful. And Pastor Steve said something today I hadn't thought about, but as he told it, I kind of reflected back, and I was like, yeah, I can see this. They were talking about how some of the businesses were closed on Sunday that they hadn't seen.
There were a lot of businesses closed this Sunday,
Yeah.
this Easter.
So that's this is the time. This is the time to be connected, close to God, and really dialed in and all that. So let's see what else was there. Easter recap. So my mom, who's in the chat, and shout out to Ann Aline and my mom that are in the chat right now. But she celebrated 80 years. Her birthday was early in the month, but we didn't get a chance. We were wanting to have a big party. Times were not working out, when you got kids and doing soccer and volleyball and all this, but in the church had some things going on. So we got it all together and had a great time at her church and their fellowship hall yesterday. And we got together afterwards, had visiting and things like that, and eating some foods. And then we went right over to the little sanctuary there, and a bunch of people just sang together some old hymns and stuff like that. And it was just a good day. So
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah, she's doing good, and we praise God for that and the healing He's done in her life and all those things and all that. And then I guess before, since we've not been on for a while, we Miranda and I and the children and our in-laws went to Iowa over spring break, and we took the remains of her grandfather and put them where he was supposed to be up there. And that was a long trip, but a good trip. And, we were able to get out of Kentucky when more rain was coming. If y'all remember that time or whatever, we got out and we got back safely. So we gave God praise for that. So, any updates from you guys? I've kind of been talking too much, but I just wanted to, kind of catch up from my perspective, and my health is doing well. I am, I'll say this and then I'll hand it off, but, I am down. I've lost a lot of weight and still doing good. Got back to the doctor, good report there. And so things are looking good there. So I give God all the praise and glory for that. So we'll start with Liz. We'll start with you. Just catch up a little bit, and then we'll get rolling on this. Then after you and Scott.
Well, you covered Forrest Frank. So we went to Chicago. Our family did. Spent 2 days there. My son's 17th birthday. So that was a crazy experience. I'm glad I live in a small little town. Well, it's not small anymore, but compared to Chicago, it's right. Wow. That's just an experience in itself. Just the street life there. It's just it's nuts. But and then my son was in Les Mis this weekend, and very proud of him. And it was a really great production by the Bowling Green High kids. And it was. That's about it. Like nothing exciting. Just Chicago. That was really weird.
I would say this in between. Just please understand. We have our own families that we love to do this, but at the same time, there's times that we're going to be in and out because we have family obligations and we're all family people and all those things. So we're going to do our best to kind of get somewhat of a regulatory moving, but at the same time, family's everything as far as, spending time with your kids or what, all the things we do or whatever like that. And Scott, I know one of the times we had talked about, you said you couldn't make it because you had your family coming in from out of state, one of your kids or some of your kids or whatever. So go ahead and pick up there, and after that we'll get started.
Yeah, I had our oldest son, Nathan, and his boys, and his girlfriend, who's actually from the UK and is visiting him for a little bit. They came down from Ohio and visited for several days, and then leading into Easter this past weekend. And so that was a lot of fun. We don't get to see him. I mean, we see him online and talk to him and so forth, but live and in person, you don't see him a whole lot. And I think since the last time I was on, I started working at the Shelter Store downtown, which is basically a store near the Humane Society, and it's the outlet, retail outlet part of the Humane Society, and all the money that is made there goes straight to the Humane Society and the animals and so forth. When our son Nathan and all of them, I had to introduce him to my boss and my coworker, and so they were in looking around, and this is great, kind of cool, and all that, and so Mary said, "Well, you want to go up and see some of the dogs at the animal shelter?" Okay, yeah. So then they ended up going home with a dog.
Wow.
They adopted a Antonio Shepherd, I can't think what it's called. Something like like a Turkish Shepherd, and ended up taking him back to Ohio with them. And so that was kind of a neat thing. And, so that's kind of what's happening with us for the time being.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're back, and glad you guys we all are doing as well as we are. I've been fighting off, and if I fall in and out, it's because I'm coughing, but I'm not coughing as bad as I was. So I give God praise for that. But I'll be.
Mike, can I jump in? There's a couple of people, it looks to me, are waiting to get in, or is that true? Or on the what do you call it?
No, I think they just texted that they were waiting to watch, and now they're
okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, when you set it up, like I set it up on a timer, and so it allows them to come in and wait in the lobby. I think is how.
Okay, I just didn't know if they wanted to. Yeah, all good.
Right now we have 3, but I don't know who the third is. But we have both of them and another, so I'm not sure who that is. So, let's see. Okay, so we're at Hebrews chapter 12. I want us to get us into this because as a person looks at this, so in some, it depends on your perspective, right? If your perspective maybe is one way, it feels like gloom and doom. But if you look at it in a different route or different way, and it can be a source of encouragement, I think. So it's all about how you look at it. So we're going to try to break this down and work through it. I know, Scott, you had said you had some different comments and thoughts on this. And I have a thought and comment from today's sermon at church. That
I heard a comment that he made. I was like, I know. I was like, immediately, it's like, I knew we were going to talk about that. So.
Because that right there, that comment, if we're on the same page here, that comment he made today changes the whole perspective, from one to the other. And we'll read through it, then we'll get to that in a little bit. So I'm going to let Liz read, since I might start hacking up along here in a second. So go ahead.
Okay. You ready to pop it up? There we go. Okay. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the ones he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children, not sons. Besides this, we have had early fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it become defiled. That no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears. For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire in darkness and gloom and a tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further message be spoken to them. For they could not endure the order that was given. If even a beast touches the mountain, it should be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse him who is speaking. For if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns from heaven. At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken, that is, the things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire.
Amen. Let's take up an offering.
Michael, you're off. You're off. We can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
When I read this a few weeks ago, and God was dealing with me, and Satan was wrestling with me, this had a totally different meaning. Almost a condemning. I'm speaking very, very vulnerable here for a second. Almost a condemning aspect to it. Okay. But keep in mind what I'm saying to you is this was during the time of maybe anxiety, stress, depression, whatever you want to put in there. Some of that stuff was in there. Now that I'm on the other side of that and I read this, I get a totally different meaning. And it really was knocked home today by what Steve said coming out of, what was it? I think it was,
first.
what was where did he read from today?
It was Luke 24.
Luke 24. And I'll paraphrase this and we can actually read it here in a second. But basically what happened after this is right after the resurrection. Okay. After the resurrection, I guess a few days or whatever it was, and we can read the scripture to be accurate. But here comes Jesus walking on the road. Up ahead of him, on the road to Emmaus, are some of the disciples talking. Okay, they're sitting there having a conversation, probably talking about, or you're definitely talking about what had just happened, right? And Jesus comes up, and I think Steve, what was his paraphrase was, "Hey, what's up?" Or whatever. And
yeah, what's up?
Their response was not to talk to him, but their heads were down. Okay, their heads were down, and they did not see him for who he was. And as I was thinking about that, and I went back to how I looked at this scripture, just a few, last time I read it, and then in weeks prior, my perspective, which was at the time, my head was down. And I didn't understand or acknowledge, although I know it in my heart, you know what I mean? But I didn't acknowledge who he was. And it hit me pretty solid today, because once they lifted their head, everything changed.
I wrote down 3 key things in my Bible that he said. If you only believe what you see, you don't believe enough, which I thought that was really
good.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The second part where you talking about, but their eyes were kept from recognizing. What keeps you from recognizing him?
Exactly.
That's the second thing. The third thing I wrote down is we do not need to be slow of heart to believe.
What was that last one?
We don't need to be slow of heart to believe.
Oh, slow of heart. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like I keep going back to this little adage or whatever. And we've all used the example where the kid jumps off the bed into dad's arms or whatever, without any unabandoned or whatever. They just jump because they believe dad's going to catch.
Mm-hmm.
But man, don't we go away from that as adults?
This is what he also said. He says we need to remove Jesus from Nazareth and move him to the Son of God. Did you catch that little thing that he said? I was like, wow. I was like, that's trippy right there. Like, how many of us just still keep him in Nazareth, but he's the Son of God. We need to put him in his rightful place.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we put him in that place, then the Michael that read this a few weeks ago, it changes the perspective. You know what I mean? And it's still a work in progress. I'll be honest with you. For me, it's still, I'm better than I was, much better than I was, but it's a constant, it's a dying to yourself daily. It's that prayer time is so important, and starting out with prayer, thanking him for this or thanking him for that, especially your salvation, of course, right off the bat, right? Raising you up the next day to breathe and have life. And then after that, get into the things, get specific with it, about what he's done for you,
I think sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
We're going to get off of this, but there's a scripture about, speaking the praises of God. And when we do that, what I think it is, the enemy, if the enemy can keep us down, we're not as functional in the kingdom. Does that make sense? And so when you get taken down, sometimes it's really hard to get back up, and the enemy knows it, and it gets our focus off of the glory and the truth of God. And as we begin to thank God and remember everything he's done for it, that builds our faith. You understand what I'm saying? There's faith comes by hearing is a scripture, I think it is. And the more we speak about the faithfulness of God, what he's done in our lives, like I'm a stronger believer than I was years ago, because I have these stories of where God showed up, or where God did this and God healed, or God, has brought me to maturity. And I know I'm going to be maturing till the day I die, but I think that's important. What you're talking about is to speak what he's done, because if we don't, it's easy for us to forget it. Because
I ran across a couple today. Scott, you may actually know them. I don't know. I won't say their name. They're a Hispanic couple. But I ran into them the first time when I was on my scooter and I had my cast on, and I'm sure defeated look on my face, at that time, that demeanor. And he came up to me, and at church, they're kind of a newer couple to the church overall, but he just gave me words of encouragement, right? Well, I run into him a couple times, different times, and then today I talked to him, and they said, "Well, how are you doing?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm doing great," And I said, "Hopefully you can see that my demeanor is different." And they said, "Absolutely." I said, "God has done a great healing and work in my life, And I started to share a little bit. And I don't say that to toot my own horn, but I'm trying to give back acknowledgement of what God has done for whoever will listen. Or maybe they saw me there the first way, and now they're seeing me the second way. Maybe that would be a positive influence or a testimony, for them, maybe in some way, shape, or fashion. So yeah, I mean, it's I just go back to that. Our heads cannot be down. We've got to see him for who he is. And it's like you said, Liz, and what Pastor Steve said about getting him out of Nazareth and making him the Son of God. That's such a powerful statement. Go ahead. If I guess Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking at this Road to Emmaus. It is chapter 24 of what was it, Luke, I guess. And it just it's interesting, because it says that the two guys were walking to a village named Emmaus, talking to each other and so forth. And verse 16 of that chapter, it says, 15, Jesus walks up to them to go with them. And he says, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. Not that they kept their own eyes, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And the Greek word, I looked this up in church today, because I thought, well, why was that? And it means that they were strong. They were held with strength, held from recognizing Jesus. And I think there's intentionality in that, because verse 17, when Jesus basically said, what's up? What are you doing? What's going on? Then it's verse 17. Let's see here. Yeah, at the end of verse 17, it says, and they stood still looking sad. And other translations indicate that they had their eyes down. We talked about this in our 11 o'clock Sunday school class, as a matter of fact, this very thing. And we said that, we're born with five senses, and we're used to everything being according to our senses. And the reason that these guys were not excited that the body of Jesus was not where it was because they didn't believe what he said. Jesus said, I'm going to rise again. And they told him, look, here's a guy that did these miracles, and he was coming against the Romans. He's coming against our Jewish leaders, that are irritants to us. He's coming against. We thought that he was going to free us from this Roman rule and so forth. And now they killed him, and now we can't even find his body. And later on, we see that Jesus said, how foolish you were to not believe all that the prophets wrote about, basically me and the crucifixion and the resurrection. You didn't believe it. You only believe like part of it. And I think that we are prone to our senses. We believe what we feel, see, touch, smell, taste. Did I get them all? And and hear. And faith requires that we believe beyond our senses. We have to go beyond. We just have to believe because God said so. And boy, that preaches easy, and it's easy to sit in Sunday school class and say that, but it's a whole different thing tomorrow morning, when we're like, God, I'm living by faith, and I don't know, I don't see. Here's what I do see, and here's what I do hear, and here's what I do know, and so forth. And so it's easy for us to have our heads down. But one thing, I'll just say this for me, I can't wait. I picture myself in heaven saying, all right, Jesus, sit down, tell me, just like you told these guys to Emmaus, tell me from the beginning of Scripture, tell me the Bible. I'd love to hear it from God's perspective, from Jesus's perspective, and just listen, because we got all eternity to hear. And I would love to have the story of Jesus told from Jesus himself. But anyway, my point was that we were talking about that. And I remember back when we were high school track, we'd run our sprints or whatever it is. And you get at the end of the race and you have your hands down on your knees and you're panting. And the coach would say, get your heads up. And it was like, well, we were tired from running hard. Get your heads up, get your hands behind your head. Well, why is that, coach? Because you can take in the air. If your heads are up, you have fresh air. You can then breathe. And kind of in the same way with our heads up, when we look toward Jesus, there's a fresh air of Christ, of the Spirit that's within us. When we look at him, we see, it's not what I'm seeing down here, it's what I'm seeing who he is. And the down here really doesn't make any difference as long as I can see who he is, because that overcomes all the down here. So anyway, that was just some of the things that we were talking about in Sunday school, if that's helpful.
One thing I would like to say, bringing it back to this, is when Hebrews 11, we were talking about all these stories of where, I'll read what I wrote, with the witnesses, that their stories tell us it should encourage us to know that we are not alone in our struggles and that Christ helped them overcome. Talking about the cloud of witnesses, we gave Hebrews 11 is basically all these testimonies. They says, I can't even keep going because it would just fill up everything. But, we get the privilege to see these people screw ups. And I know we're going to get to heaven, and David's like, you really had to do that one. I would not want my life to be put in a book. And to us, it's absolutely normal. I know that sounds, because I've grown up with a lot of these stories, but thing is, these testimonies help us in our failures and our flaws or our failings when we fall. That shows God's redemptive plan and redemption. I mean, he's throughout the Bible, he's continuously redeeming. Mm-hmm. And it says, therefore, since we have surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, and let us run with endurance in the race that's set before us. It's good to know that we're not alone in our struggles, and God doesn't leave us alone, like with our church body or our like us, when we're struggling, we can let it out. We got people to lift us up and stand beside us, and God just provides so many things, not only the stories from the people before us, but his example. I mean, going back to the cloud of witnesses, I
found that interesting too, because he brought that up today, just like you had talked about in the past. About the worship and all that, and that the great cloud of witnesses are basically surrounding what's going on at the time. He kind of alluded to that today a little bit, I thought. And I one area, we talk about people come in there with addictions and all this stuff. I heard something this week or this past week or whatever, and it was a pastor talking about it, and he said, you are equipped with the resources to fight addictions. And I was like, that's a pretty powerful statement, that you are equipped. You have the resources, Jesus Christ, of course, and all those things. But he doesn't, but it ties back into what you said about he doesn't give up on us. If it was radio silence, then, for instance, with me, if you look at my life, when I went through what I went through here lately, I mean, we all got our things. I'm just using me as an example because, you know, I just am. So I had the Achilles thing, and it had this and that, and all these things that come up. If he was done with me, there would be radio silence.
Yeah.
But what you saw, or what we saw, is healing. He healed that through the doctors and the nurses and all the things. And he healed this and he healed that, you know, along the way. And it's like, so he's not done with me because of sins I've committed or you've committed or whatever. There's still time to be redeemed. There's still time to be reconciled, you know, from things that we struggle with or whatever. But I was wanting to go back. I got to see if I can find it where it was talking about. Let me get over here if I can get this thing to work right. Let's see. Yeah. In 12, it says, therefore, let me see if I can put it on the screen. I keep forgetting. Sorry, guys.
Lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees.
Yeah. Strengthen your weak knees and make straight paths for your feet. Strive for peace with everyone. That's, you know, I think we all, if you're a believer, you try to do that. But what was the other part? Basically, it's talking about the discipline.
I think that's a very important area.
That's earlier on, but
is that where I'm at? Are we down there yet?
Yeah, like verse 4, 5, 6 about discipline.
Go the other way.
Right.
Other way. Go up.
Okay, right there.
Right there with a little right there. Do not grow weary.
Yeah. Chastises every son whom he receives. If you didn't get chastised, which could be, now I'm gonna throw this out here, and you all tell me what you think. Can chastisement be in the form of a sickness or a punishment?
Yes,
way? I think so. And
well, we got to sit there and let's correlate it with the Bible. Where have you seen that happen?
Yeah, right.
You see that with David, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who else? Yes, I will say yes.
That's it. Just David.
Hey,
there are others.
Let me say this real quick. Mom and or whoever might be in chat. I don't know. Mom usually comments and hasn't commented, so I don't know if.
Example.
Okay, hold on to that thought just a sec. Just put a letter or a Y if you're able to type a message, because I haven't seen anything in the chat. Okay, so just type a Y. If you're just listening, that's great, but I've not seen it. Okay,
there's stunned silence.
Yeah, it's just really quiet. All right, go ahead with you said Saul was that? Yeah.
Yeah, Saul, remember when he put himself above God? Samuel hadn't come yet, so he gives a sacrifice, and you know, Samuel says God's going to tear the kingdom from you, but then God allows a spirit to inhabit Saul. But the thing is, Saul never repents, and I honestly think that was a punishment to bring him to repentance. You know, because God doesn't want anybody to suffer, anybody to perish. He says that. I don't want anybody. There are things that God allows happen. Nothing happens that does not go before the throne of God.
Yeah.
There are things that have happened to me I wish never had happened. But you know what? A lot of times I'm on the other end and I'm like, man, you know, talking about when you were talking about how their eyes were down, I think sometimes God doesn't allow us to recognize him in that time period because he's teaching us. Mm-hmm. Because when he's telling those people in the road to Emmaus who he was, you know, telling all this, they didn't recognize it yet. But they said, my heart burned within me when he talked, you know. And then God allowed them to see him when it was necessary. But I think, I don't know where I was going with this. But
well, I look at myself as a prodigal son. I think we all can look at ourselves as that prodigal son story.
Yes.
We've all had good, I would say good moments of journeying with God. And then and it's not God leaving or moving around, it's us. And then we get off track, and then we wallow in all that for a while. And then he kind of, and just with that, like I said, the shepherd hook, he kind of pulls us back into the fold. And I think that for me, that's what's been happening with me. A lot has been revealed, and I'm not going to go into my personal. That's between me and God. But there's a lot has been revealed, a lot has been changed for the better. Some of these scriptures I've wrestled with. When you're was it downcast, your face is downcast. But when you look up, it's like we've been talking about. When you look up, it changes the perspective. And yes, we can go through struggles. We can go through all these different things. But guess what? It's got my attention. And for anybody that's been through something, it's got your attention. And you start to listen more. Your eyes kind of open, your ears open, and you start listening and hearing in a different way. And so, this is not as much of a scary piece as it is almost a relieving piece of scripture.
Yeah, it's developing. The word discipline there in verse 5, my son, did not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor to be. A long time ago, I heard someone say, what's the root word of discipline? Is to disciple. And so when God is discipling us, when we're being disciplined, and sometimes we need punishing to draw our eyes back to Him, and to look up. And the thing is, when we look up, Jesus always has the victory over everything, always. And so when we're looking to someone who always has the victory, that's who. Why wouldn't I? We want to. I would like for the Nebraska Cornhuskers to always have a victory. Well, they don't. And so a lot of times people don't, Huskers, whatever. But I'm a Husker fan. But if they were always winning, everyone would be looking to them, right? Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't they win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Everybody's looking to the Eagles because they're winners. They're victorious. And so people want to be like that. When Jesus always has the victory. And not that we can ever be like Jesus, but we can surrender to let Jesus be who He is through us and in us and through us. And that surrendering of just looking up and saying, I can't handle the situation, Lord. It's just not in me to do. But since You had the victory and You're in me, then I claim victory.
Mm-hmm. Mom said, she did post, but it didn't pop up until Aunt Eileen typed a Y, and then it all kind of started moving. So I don't know. Maybe it's kind of had a little hiccup. I don't know. But Mom said we need to pray and then stand still and know He is God. Yep, that's right.
It reminds me, for some reason, I love Rocky Balboa. I love Sylvester Stallone, but the movie of Rocky IV just popped in my head, where he's in the ring with Ivan Drago, or whatever his name was. He doesn't stay down. It's like he keeps getting up and getting the punishing, and there are many times we've wanted just to fall down in defeat, and a lot of it's our own choosing. But the thing is, it builds a strength and endurance and a victory in the end if we keep getting up every time we fall. And one thing I've said, before I gave my life to God completely, my life was so much easier. And there's so many days I wanted to give up because I was tired, and it was like, but the thing is, I knew the prize was too valuable. And I was looking at the prize. I was sitting there. It's not worth losing. I have to persevere because that's worth more than this, or giving up. And it can be, I think, as we are able to overcome that one hurdle, like some of us here, God gives us a breather, and then we got to get ready for the next hurdle, because that's what He does. He reveals one thing at a time, and sometimes it's many things at a time, but it's that perseverance and pushing towards the prize that we as believers, it's already been won, but we're learning. We like it says, it's developing a holiness in us as we push through all these things and we get disciplined. It's not like, to us, discipline is go pick out your switch, go out in the yard, pick your thing out. It's not that. It's a loving discipline that
And word of encouragement is in 6. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves.
yeah.
So if I get a little spanking and I'm in the right frame of mind, I will see that as he loves me. Right? But it goes back to what I keep going back to it. We got to get our head up, to and the enemy doesn't want our head up, because then that verse 6 becomes real, and it becomes more and more truthful to us when we have our head up. But when your head's down, verse 6, if you will, is chastising, is condemnation, because the enemy's playing with the situation. So that's why I wanted to preface what was said today with this, because it was so evident. You've got to get your head up.
I think verse 1 sets that up. Therefore, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, and I've got a whole story that goes with that we don't have time for, but let us also, and the New American Standard says, let's rid ourselves of every obstacle. First of all, 1, and then the sin which so easily entangles us, 2, and then 3, run with endurance. Now the Amplified puts it says, let us strip off and throw aside every encumbrance, or throw aside every sin. So in these days, this is speaking to the runners back in the day. They run the marathons and so forth. They would run bare naked. They would throw off everything and even put oils on them, whatever, so they could move faster. And that's what this is in reference to. Let us lay every weight, anything that's going to hold you down, a hat, a armband, whatever, throw it off, throw it down, so that you can run, so that we can run with endurance. That's the weight that it's talking about. That's exactly what he meant. Throw it down. And then it says also, and the sin which clings so closely. I like the way the New American Standard says, and the sin which so easily entangles us. And I think of weeds that wrap around our feet and try and pull us down. Well, as I studied out, I've studied this passage and with purpose to try and help somebody one time, because I didn't know what I was talking about and I just used it. And so I had to follow through and make sure that I knew what I was talking about, and I learned all kinds of things. The sin that so easily entangles us has to do with being intimidated by other runners. And if you think about it, when runners are first in their lanes, they're getting ready, stretching their legs out and getting ready to get down in their stance, waiting for the gun to raise and shoot. They didn't have that back then, of course, but sometimes you have guys that are, jumping around, just kind of trying to loosen themselves up. And then you have a runner who's like the big bad dude who's going to beat everybody, and he'll just walk right in front of them, just staring them down and just look them all over. Well, that's intimidating, because you're looking at me like you're going to take me out, you're going to beat me. And, he's just staring. This is saying, don't be entangled. Don't be intimidated by that type of thing. Rid yourself of every encumbrance, every weight, and do not be intimidated by what lies before you. But run with endurance the race that is set before you. My race is not Mike's race. My race is not Liz's race, and y'all's is not my race. We all have our own race to run that God's created for us. And as we're running that race, the cloud of witnesses surrounding us is like the crowd that are saying, "Come on, Mike, you can do it. Let's go. Let's go." Liz?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking Olivia for some. Sorry. Let's go, Liz. You can do this. It's like the crowd of witnesses is cheering us on, and we're casting off every weight and the intimidation and so forth. That happens when we're looking to Jesus. The next verse, looking to Jesus, who is at the end of that race, the founder and the perfecter of our faith, which means that I go beyond just what I can see and feel and smell and taste. I'm looking beyond that in blind faith to Jesus, who's waiting for me at the end of my race. I keep my eyes on him, keep focused straight ahead. And if I start looking down and look at all the things that are holding me back, I'm not going to run a very good race at all.
I think a really good parallel to this would be Peter, because, when Jesus was betrayed, how quickly he denied him. Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then he immediately denies him.
Mhm.
Then he denies it. And then the conviction, and he goes and he earnestly repents. And then God makes him head of the church, to be the one to whatever. And then he lives out the gospel to to the point of his own death. Like, you see that where I'm going with this, the change of here it is. It says, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your own blood. But the thing is
Yeah.
you're talking about Peter went through that thing where he failed. He repented, and then he understood the race, and he did do it to the point of shedding his own blood, and he was crucified upside down because he didn't feel worthy to die the same way Jesus did. So he was crucified upside down. And most of all the apostles but one died in gruesome ways. And here we are. We'll complain about, like, who is it? John Chris cracks me up, is like, talks about how girls are sitting there with their little Starbucks cups and like a nail will break. And then, oh, this battle's the Lord's. And like they'll talk in that kind of way, or, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And, but they'll take this, I don't know, I couldn't get the right coffee at Starbucks, and then they'll label it as a spiritual battle. Oh, Satan tried to get me today. I didn't get something in my latte, or, but it's to the point, that we don't, I think Westerners really don't get what it really means to actually run a race. You understand what I'm saying? And
To endure.
and there's going to get a point where our faith is going to be so tested that I'm afraid that not a lot of Christians will stand because they don't know the truth. I mean, how many, like even Peter folded, but then he repented and then was able to understand after the resurrection and everything. But
And and I'm sure Peter was, but I too, I'm so thankful that he didn't leave me alone.
yes,
So
and God
thankful that
forgave him. He didn't hold it over his head.
Yeah, he came back, or he kept working with me. I remember the little song we sing in our church. He's still working on me to make me what I ought to be.
Yeah.
And it goes on from there. But I'm a work in progress. We all are. Even Scott, you're the elder in these three, us three right now.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
But I mean, we're all at different places, but he's still working on us. He's still. I used to use this word, hewing out things, replacing them with better things. If we listen, that is. And I'm like I was telling the friend I was talking to earlier today, and I said, sometimes God can just put his hand on someone's shoulder, and it gets their attention. I said, but me, he's got a big old 2x4 and hit me upside the head with it sometimes because I'm hard headed, and or I might dip my toe in the water of what I thought I had good faith, but I tipped my toe in the water and I jumped back real quick, and he's teaching me, and he's teaching all of us in different our respective paths. I want to put this up. This is what Mom said. Let me get that up here real quick. God knows our thoughts. I don't believe that Satan can hear our thoughts until we speak it. So we need to watch what we say. When we speak, that gives Satan the opening he needs. Yeah, I agree with that. But what he also was waiting for is that chink in the armor, that weakness that we reveal, and usually it's through words, yes. And when he can find the chink in the armor, that's where he goes for. So and that may change over time with us too, right? Like you might be maybe have a good strong faith over here, and then there's something else that's weak in you, and he finds that. So it's like and that's where you're dying daily. Take up your cross. You die daily. His mercies are new every morning. Pray, pray, pray. That's what I would say. Anyway,
I'm reading a book called what is it called? It's a really good book. It's about a woman. It's teaching about spiritual warfare, and it's called "He Came to Set the Captives Free," and it was about a woman coming out from a very heavy occult life, and this Christian woman was helping her in this overcoming, and God let her see in the spirit. And this girl had closed a lot of doors, but the demons were just circling. All these demons she had let enter her throughout the occult practices and stuff were just circling her. They were like lions, cheetahs, those kind of things, just looking for one little niche that they could get in. And then they would cover that door, and then they changed the way they circled. They went the other way, trying to find another, and then they went on the top. I mean, and it's just like that scripture says, he stalks around like the roaring lion. You know, they are very patient. If you look at that from a shepherd's point of view, they take their time. They just wait for that one little one to go astray, or that one little, everybody leaves this one way. They just wait. They're the most patient animals. They just wait for that one little opportunity. And
yeah, I want to say, I think we give Satan and demons way too much credit.
That is true. We've got the authority.
We do, but to the point where sometimes, and I'm nothing against what you're saying, Liz. That's fine. But from my perspective, I think sometimes I've heard this: "Oh, the enemy is going to get me, and he's against me, and this, that, and the other." When the reality is, it's my heart that wants something, and so I can blame that on Satan, and have a downcast day or whatever, because I'm not.
I should rephrase what I was trying to say. He waits for us to act on that, and that gives an opening.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, I'm not coming.
No, I'm not saying that. It's like I probably didn't. What I was trying to hear didn't come out as well.
But what I would say is that when you were speaking there, it reminded me of Psalm 23, the shepherd who, where it says, he prepares a table before us in the presence of my enemies. The word table is not a table like we sit at. They didn't have those tables back in David's day. What they had was a tableland. The tableland was the area that he was going to bring the sheep to, and he had to go through and pick out all the poisonous weeds and get rid of all the critters and rearrange the rocks and everything to allow for water to flow and for everything to grow like it's supposed to, and to ward off all of the critters and animals and enemies of the sheep. He went and prepared the tableland for the sheep so that when he brought them to that place of grazing, they would be safe. And we are completely, entirely safe within our shepherd's care. I may go astray, but guess what? There's no werewolf or wolf or whatever going to come and get me, because my shepherd is around me, and he's the one that has all of them on a leash. We look at in Job's life, Satan couldn't go any more than what God said. He couldn't do anything else, and it was God's allowance. It wasn't Satan's great abilities. He's just an angel. He's just a rebellious angel. That's all he is. And him and the whole demonic world, they're nobody. But we keep our eyes on Christ Jesus. That's all that counts. And so for me, I've taken myself from saying, well, the enemy's against me. I start telling myself, it's not the enemy against me. It's God against me. It's my own flesh trying to get my way with something. And I'm just like couching it in the enemy or whatever. I need to just keep my eyes on focus on Jesus, period, because he's the one he's inside me. He's prepared the tableland ahead of me, and I just need to follow. He takes me on great green grasses, but he also runs me down the valley of the shadow of death. That's still a path that is for his righteousness. And so I've got to follow him, because all paths that he has created for me are for his righteousness in me and through me. So anyway, that's my little soapbox on the enemy.
Well, I think
which man
to me, it's a slippery slope a little bit, because we know there are people that deal with different things different ways, but I see what you're saying. Definitely see that. And when I look back on my whole thing, there was a lot of selfish Michael things that stirred that journey maybe from the get go. Well, let's take a look at it. I'll share a little bit of it. Okay, so I had a Achilles tendon rupture. Now we can sit and say that, oh, poor Michael, or if we get real honest about it, now that I'm on the other side of it, look at where I was many years ago, the weight I had on me. Now I'm not going against heavy people, don't get me wrong, but let's be real honest about it. Okay, I ate a lot of food, thus becoming gluttony is a sin. Right? Follow the train here for a minute. Follow the dots. Okay, therefore, bad habits formed, and that didn't stop. Okay, fast forward a bunch of years, and I have type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes leads to, not being able to process the insulin and all the things you need to do and all those things. Okay, which prolongs my healing, in some cases. Sometimes it heals pretty quick. Sometimes it might not. In this case with the Achilles tendon, it didn't heal like it was supposed to. Now, there's other factors there I won't go into with, doctors and whatever. But at the end of it all, it starts back at gluttony. Now, where did the gluttony come from? That's a whole, that's me laying on a couch telling you the story. But we're not going to do that. But the point I'm trying to make with it is if we really are honest with everything, okay, I believe this. If you go back and whatever a person's dealing with, there's a reason for it. And what I mean by that, someone may say, well, my husband is went through this, this or whatever you might want to add in there. Okay, well, back it up. There is a root cause that we all have to be honest with ourselves to look at, and for me, I'll go back to my story. For me, it was number one, it was the gluttony, but that comes from other things too, right? We have to, it's a layered onion that you have to keep peeling back. And Liz, you shared that with me offline one day. We were talking about some stuff and you were talking about it's layers upon layer upon layer upon layer. And it goes back to this or that and the other. But here's what I would say. And here's the good news as we try to get ready to wrap this up is that go back to verse 6. If I can get there real quick, right here. Yeah. For the Lord disciplines the ones he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. You know what? Some of this, God has made a choice to heal my body to this point. That's how I will say it. Does that mean I am totally sick free? What? No, that doesn't. I still deal with stuff. But I praise God for what he's done in my life. And I think we all need to do that. We all need to get our head up and we need to realize and get as Liz said earlier, get Jesus out, and Stephen said, get Jesus out of Nazareth and get him to his rightful place as the Son of God. The Son of God.
Yeah.
For the Lord disciplines the ones he loves. And, if he's still doing things in your life and you're still, I told someone I felt like I was, who was it? David that wrestled with God or whatever, I think it was, or something like that.
Jacob wrestled with God.
Or Jacob that wrestled with God.
Yeah.
I felt like that some during this time, and, but I'm glad he chose to wrestle with me and not discard me.
Because he loves you.
He loves me. And that's the essence and the key of it all. And that's what makes the resurrection of Jesus so powerful, is because we all are a bunch of misfits. We all have our story. And we all are on different journeys, different. We're on the same. We're on running the race, but we're all at different places. But we're not chasing each other. We're just trying to run the race of endurance. And so I just encourage us all that we look at this. If you've looked at Hebrews chapter 12 and there as kind of a condemning or gloom and doom chapter, I pray that maybe something that we've said tonight has kind of flipped that around for you, because I see it in a different light. I'll just say that. Closing comments, I guess, if we're all good. Closing comments or anything?
I'd like to say, I think it goes back to the bottom where it's like he's shaking the foundation. So what's not, that can't be shaken will be solidly stand through all this conversation. And it's sometimes we have to be shaken. So what's sturdy will stay, or what's holy will stay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the endurance is, the race is, because God is the foundation. He's the solid thing that cannot be shaken.
Right.
When we're shaken.
He's consistent. As like I said, it wasn't that he left me. I had wandered away from him. And we've all been there. We've all done it in our own right. But that's why the shepherd has a hook. Bring that.
Or in modern day terms, a retractable leash.
Yep. Modern day terms. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yep. And I'm thankful for it. And I'm thankful we got back to it. Scott, you have any last moment things to say?
Yeah, just like the retractable leash, we just recently, the last several days, got ourselves a new little puppy, just a cute little football, literally about that big, and it bounces around. She just is so much fun to have. But she'll, like a little sheep going astray, will wander off, looking for her own way, trying to go somewhere that she shouldn't, do what she shouldn't, whatever. And she doesn't realize that we're walking along right behind her. We're so big in comparison with her. We're just kind of shuffling along while she's taking these big strides, thinking she's, really exploring, doing, getting away with whatever. We're right there. Jesus is right there with us, regardless of what we think, I'm getting away with this, or I'm just going to explore that, or whatever. Our Father is right there with us, and he may have to chastise us. We pick her up, no, you don't get to eat that, chew on that, whatever. God may have to pick us up. He may have to scourge us. He may have to chastise us. It may be a light discipline. He knows what he's doing, but he's right there. He's literally right on us. So there's nothing really to be afraid of, but at the same time, as we keep our eyes on him, we won't wander away. And that's more easily said than done, obviously. I just got to say this too, that you talked about Peter earlier, I think, Liz, you were talking about the 3 denials, and I can't forget when Jesus arose from the dead at the resurrection, and Mary or whoever it was saw him there, and he said, "But go tell the disciples and Peter that I've arisen," and he specified Peter outside of the disciples. And I thought, what a kind Jesus he was, because the last time Peter saw him was after that third denial, and then he saw him dying. That's the last thing.
I've never seen that. Wow, that's pretty cool. And he ran he was the one that ran to the tomb, remember?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And ran right in. Yeah. So I just thought God is precious that way. He's so kind. He does these little things for us all the time. And I want to recognize that in my life.
You need to write a book, The Little Things of Jesus, those little details.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Little things of Jesus, because I think we don't see the little details of God's little love for us just in the, like, I'd never seen that detail before. Wow, that's really cool.
It just hit me. Steve said it. He didn't say that, but he was reading or something at Easter, and it just came to me. I thought, oh yeah, what a kind God.
He took that extra little bit of time, extra little thing, to show that his love for Peter, his love for Peter was still there, because I'm sure Peter didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like we talked about, as I read this a few weeks ago or months ago or whatever, when last time I read this, I was in a different place, and I didn't see verse 6 the way I see verse 6. And I think that's all
Yeah.
of us in our different places, you know. And man, I think Liz, you might be onto something, you and Scott, with that, to come up the little things that Jesus,
That would be amazing because I love the little details, and sometimes we just get flooded with all the information that we miss the key little details like
Jump right
that,
over it.
and the affection of God and just His grace there. That tripped me out. I think that would be neat, and that would be for someone who's like on the meat, maybe. But
here's one, and I don't know if it's, I may be stretching, I may be just trying to get included in that. I don't know, but like when the grave clothes in the tomb were folded.
Mhm.
Okay, if you were eating a meal.
Sorry, I just came up with a comic idea about Mary teaching Jesus to fold his clothes, and it paid off.
Oh.
It paid off.
No, if you were eating a meal, do you fold the napkin, or do you just kind of wad it up and throw it on the plate?
You fold it and you say, "I'm going to come back." That's what you do with the napkin. That's why.
Okay, well then it don't work like I was thinking.
No, it does work, Mike. It does, because we throw it when we're done. We wad it up and throw it away. But Liz is right. When we're going to come back, we lay it, we fold it, whatever. Is Jesus not coming back?
That's what Jesus was saying. He says, "I'll be back."
Here was my thought, and my thought may just be a little off to the right or left here, but my thought was, okay, if you wad the napkin up after a meal, it's done. Okay.
Yeah.
If you refold the napkin like it was brand new, it's not needed anymore. That's where the thought was, but I think it still can probably be used. So there's two. So y'all work on the rest of it. That's all I got right now. But the little things of Jesus, or however y'all wanna. I think that would be a cool little something.
That,
you know.
I'm full of ideas. I'll just throw them out.
Yeah.
But no, that's hilarious though with Mary. All these years,
Yeah,
that'd be Mary at the tomb. After all these years, he's finally learned to fold his clothes.
That would be good. That would be really good.
It only took 33 years.
There you go.
33 years, and he finally learned not to.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys,
and who taught?
It has been a wonderful time to catch up, get back together. I am so glad we got through Hebrews 12, and like I said, I hope everybody has a different perspective maybe than what you had about it. Find it as encouraging. And so the next one will be Hebrews 13. I think it's the last chapter. And then we're looking at a couple, 2 or 3 places where we might go next. There will be some times in and out again because we're hitting summer vacations and different things going on. But we're going to try to be as consistent as we possibly can. Okay. So just keep that in mind. If we don't are not able to, then don't fret about it, but we'll be back as soon as we can or whatever. Anything else from you guys before we call it a good night?
I'm good.
Liz, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you. Shout out again to my mom and Aunt Aline, and we had some others in, but I don't know who they were, but we're glad you showed up. And for anybody that watches back on replay, again, it's over on rumble.com, and Big Dig 5 is what you type in the search engine, and it should call you right up. And you can go back and watch old episodes of different studies we've done and different things like that. And then so we'll plan to hopefully, I think, are we going to be here next week? I think, aren't we? Yeah. And so we'll be back next week, pick up Hebrews 13. So go ahead and read that if you want to, and we will take a look at that and finish out Hebrews. So thank you all so much. We love you, and take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.